Prepare yourself for List Off, the gaming podcast where your hosts, Brian and Ryan, rank the things they love. 3, 2, 1, List Off!
This week, insert 3 coins because we are discussing our top 5 beat-em-ups with our guest, Philip, from the Deleted Saves podcast. Welcome to the show, Phil. How's it going?
It's going well. Thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to come out.
Yeah, we're more than happy to have you, man. Have you guested on another podcast before?
No, you are my first.
All right.
Nice.
I've had a few offers from in our community, but you guys got the prize.
Perfect.
Sweet. That's
I wouldn't
awesome.
have it any other way.
That's it. Yeah, I had listened to a couple episodes of your podcast, and I had to get to that Chrono Trigger one first because I scrolled through the list of games. That's one of my favorites. So that was the first
I appreciate.
one.
Yeah, I still love that game years later.
Oh, me too. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what we've been playing this week. Phil, you want to start us off?
More than happy to. Now, my personal problem with gaming is that I cannot sit down with one game and concentrate on it. Except for my recent foray into the Spider-Man games. Those I had to complete. But as far as what I've been doing recently, I've been splitting my time between replaying Red Dead Redemption 2. Because I need to complete that game. I got so far in and I stopped, and I don't know why. Other than that,
it's a harsh game at times. It definitely
is. It is.
Yeah.
Other than that, I have also been playing Metroid Dread.
Oh, nice. Perfect.
And surprisingly enough, we bought the first 6 games of the Mega Man collection. So I have been trying to master the series after I kind of stopped playing. So games 4, 5, and 6 are my current target.
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't realized, quite honestly, how brutally difficult those games get after 3.
Yeah. Actually,
Really
my personal favorite of the series is 3. Do you have a favorite of those early ones?
Well, as you guys have probably, if you've seen my show list, Mega Man 2 is my favorite, but I have a personal reason for that. Now that I've been playing them back, I'm kind of really liking where 5 is, surprisingly. 4 is okay, but surprisingly, number 5 seems to have gotten the right mix of difficulty, but not punishing. It actually gives you adequate life restores and extra credits and stuff like that to actually get something done. And then when you get to those bosses, it is Dark Souls all over again, but in 8-bit form.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's cool to hear you talk about modern games too. I didn't know you played the Spider-Man games. I love those games. I personally like Miles Morales better than the actual Spider-Man.
It did.
title.
You know what? Miles Morales came out very well. I loved both. I will eventually be talking about those someday. In fact,
perfect.
my PS5 is sitting right over here to my
Nice.
right. So, but yeah, I do. I cover. Like I've done a lot of retro games. I do modern gaming on both PC and console. I have a chronology in my list, and I haven't gotten to them yet, but I will.
Yeah, I definitely can tell that you're moving in the right direction, though. So have you played the Demon Souls remake on the PS5?
I have it. It is sitting again right to me to my right.
Yeah.
And I realized after I was getting my butt kicked after a while that I went, now this could be Souls difficulty. But let me check. And it turns out, yes, there is actually a critical path if you want to follow it for easy mode. And I say this with quotes, which I may try because I love my character builds, but with many Souls games, the problem is I get so far and realize this ain't working and I'm getting my butt kicked.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely need to restart and rebuild.
Yeah. It's
And
magic builds. Magic-based builds are the way to go.
Especially the first time out.
Yeah.
Magic is way overpowered in those games, and I love it. You can terminate so many things.
Absolutely. I can't wait for Elden Ring. It's dropping soon. And,
I'm so looking forward to that. I may not be able to get to it first day like so many, but it is on my list to purchase. Absolutely.
Yeah. See, Brian, some pointers for when you have to play the Demon Souls remake?
I'm taking notes here. It sounds like Magic should be my build. So I didn't even realize you get to make different kind of classes of characters. So that's
absolutely. That's I think probably one of the things that for new Soulsborne players that they don't tell you because technically there is no class list. Mm-hmm. I mean, you get a set build. Here's some basic things and how to go down them. But since the thing is you can decide on the fly what builds you want to take, what things you want to look at,
Yeah.
it can get bogged down, confused. So you have to decide, I think, especially your first time, do I want to go magic? Do I want to go tank? Do I want to go sneak? And then from there, it's like Dungeons and Dragons, the tabletop. Do you want to be your fighter? Do you want to be your wizard? Do you want to be your thief? And then you go on and decide, now that I have experience, let's experiment.
Mhm.
Sure.
Yeah, I think I first picked like a more of a fighter class and ended up using magic. So it kind of hindered me because I'd have to use all my level up points, all my skill points to put towards magic because I would have had a deficit already if I just chose a better starting class, right?
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
Sweet. Ryan, how about you?
Yeah, I've been playing some games this week. I will leave a few off of this conversation because they might come up later. I did some research, you could say, for this topic, but the game I have been playing a lot this week is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which is a game I haven't played in a very, very long time. But we have an event, which by the time this episode airs, the event will have been over. But this coming Saturday, we have an event where we're going up against a bunch of other podcasts. And I had to see if I still had what it takes to compete. The good news is I do. I've played on the worldwide online scale and I'm still placing top 3, if not first. So like, I got it. We'll see how it ends up Saturday. It's Mario Kart. It has rubber banding. It has weapons. You never know what's going to happen. You could go from first to last in a blink of an eye. So we'll see how it ends up. But I'm looking forward to the event for sure.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
I will definitely be last. I've said it many, many times, but
well, I said you could turn on auto acceleration and you could turn on the
I don't think that's
steer
going to
assist.
help.
No,
That just takes control away from me, and I feel that I need full control.
I get it.
Tilt controls all the way.
Oh gosh, good luck. No wonder you're in last. Do you play Mario Kart 8, Phil?
We don't. It's just sadly my wife is the Mario Kart lover, and
yeah,
I
me
have
too.
actually been thinking about picking up a copy of it for her because it just looks like fun.
Mhm.
The last Mario Kart I think we played was this way back in the day, the SNES version.
Oh yeah,
But
it's a good one.
I'm not a huge racing guy, but of all of them, the Mario Karts are most likely the most fun I've ever had.
Yeah.
So I'd be willing to try Mario Kart 8. It looks like a ton of fun.
My wife's a huge fan. She actually, so I had it back on the Wii when it was just regular Mario Kart 8, and I would play her. She would lose all the time. She started getting like last place, and then all of a sudden started getting fourth, and then all of a sudden she's getting second, and then all of a sudden she's beating me half the time. And yeah, she's good. She's really good.
Nice.
I could honestly say she might be better than me. Yeah. So
Yep.
depending on the day. But
There you go.
did you play any games, Brian? How about you? Did you play any games this week?
I did, yes. So it's been more Outer Wilds for me. That game continues to be, hey man, I like it. So the controls do not bother me whatsoever. I know that was one of the big things for you, the mechanics.
It just maybe it moves slow too. I mean, it was something about it. It just
a little slow,
feel
but
good to play.
Once you get the jetpack, you're jumping around. You can accelerate forward really quickly. But
I didn't know there
that
was a
that
jetpack.
hasn't. Oh
Wait,
yeah,
did I
your
know that?
spacesuit. Your spacesuit has the jetpack
Yeah,
on
I
it.
knew that. Yeah,
So as long as you got to any planet but the first one, then you have to use it.
right.
But I'm getting more and more of the mystery solved. I haven't, there's no telling how far I am. I see the map of everything that's going on, which is very helpful. I don't have to really take notes as I thought I might have to. But yeah, it gives a good idea of, hey, you need to explore this area more, and here's this linking this, and you should probably check this out. But I really like it. I want to go through it. I want to play the expansion. All of that is going to come to a complete halt probably tonight. I want to jump on and play that Horizon Forbidden West. But yeah, it's still a game that I feel like I'll be able to jump back into it, kind of refresh my memory with the bulletin board and get right back to it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And now you know that there is a log. You don't have to actually take notes.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's that bulletin board that it really shows you what's going on.
Very cool.
And I feel like I have a good idea in my mind of like a couple of things to check out to really understand what the next step is.
So I never really got that far into it, but eventually I'm guessing it does kind of give you an order of which to go about these things, right? Like it's open-ended to a degree, or is it all open-ended and you can kind of just pick and choose what you go after?
for what I'm dealing with now, it's very open-ended, just all over the place, but I'm seeing the order of operations of what has happened and what led all of the events to get to this one point. So I imagine, I don't know how much of the story I have, but there is a flow to it, and I know kind of where I am in the flow and where I'm going, basically.
Cool.
It's really hard to talk about without flat out spoiling anything.
Yeah.
So,
I should probably give it another shot, but not anytime soon, I'm sure.
So the mystery part of it is very much the Subnautica parts that I liked. I know you kind of played Subnautica and liked it and said, like, I know where this is going, and you got all the way through it.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, I think I did all but escape the planet. Spoiler alert. Sorry. Whoops.
One of the main goals.
Yeah,
it's all good.
But yeah, there, you start to see in Subnautica, like, there's more to this than just like me being on a water planet,
right?
And like following that mystery is exactly what Outer Wilds is doing, and that's what I'm here for.
That's cool. Yeah, I can see why you like it.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm counting the hours until midnight to play Horizon, because that is definitely the big one for me.
Yeah. No, yeah, it'll be good. We'll have the different perspectives, because I'm Elden Ring and you're Horizon. So we'll have
which
it all
both
covered.
of us are interested in the other, but like there are priorities for sure.
Clear priorities.
Very, very clear priorities.
There will always be priorities in games.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
All right, well, that's the playlist of what we've got going on. So let's get into the actual list of our top 5 beat 'em ups, and we will begin now. All right, Phil, you got an honorable mention for your top 5 beat 'em ups?
Before we start, can I interrupt you real quick, Phil? I do this all the time with Brian, with guests. It's my strength is interrupting people.
Okay.
But I would like for you to tell the listeners a little bit about your podcast, because I've already kept you past your limit, I think, right? Like your podcast limit tends to be anywhere from 5 to now 12 minutes, I believe.
Yes.
So,
yes, true. No, honestly, I can speak more than 5 minutes. It is okay. But yeah, Deleted Saves. That is my podcast. I am found wherever you can get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and a whole host of others, although I'm hosted on Anchor. What I do is I do a scripted breakdown of the games that left an impression on me long after I stopped playing them. Mainly because I have a habit of, once I am finished with a game, I get rid of even including the save files. I just delete everything. It gives me a chance to delete it from my memory and really kind of digest what's been going on. My scripts, I try to keep concise and succinct, and usually they come out between about 5 to 8 minutes, now 12 minutes. But yeah, that's where it came from. That's the title, and that's usually why my podcast is fairly short. You can listen to them at a whole bunch at a time, but I have had people go, "We were expecting an hour out of you. We got 5 minutes. What's wrong here?" And I said what I had to say.
Yeah.
So,
and you say it really well. And it's
Thank
actually
you.
It's a nice break. I've said it before. I said it last week, actually, on the show, that it's a nice break from some of the other podcasts I listen to, because I know I can always get that time in to listen to Deleted Saves. I know that. And it's a podcast that values your time.
Yes. I will say, the final push over the edge to me deciding to do a podcast was a YouTuber by the name of Noah Gervais.
Mm-hmm.
Except, ironically, in this case, he does extremely long-form breakdowns of games and game franchises. His stuff usually averages about 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And I'm like, he's doing this really intellectually. I like his breakdown. He swears for fun. I can do that real simple. And then I started breaking down going, I think I'm going to key in on being a little bit shorter than a 3-hour diatribe here. So one of his standouts is he did almost 8 straight hours on the entire Resident Evil franchise over the last 25 years.
Wow.
And I watched every minute of that video.
Yeah.
Nice.
I might have to
for
tune in
several
now.
days.
Yeah.
But that is my format. That is my hotspot. I may be getting a little longer as I get like into the later generations of games.
Yeah.
But I'm still going to try to keep but I'm still going to try and keep it as concise as possible.
Very cool. Very cool. So my interruption is over now. If you do have an honorable mention, we'd love to hear it.
I
Man.
do. My honorable mention for my top 5 beat 'em ups is Alien vs. Predator, the arcade cabinet version.
Nice.
Now, a little background on this. When in a couple of my shows, I have mentioned the mall. Mm-hmm. What I'm talking about is the Viewmont Mall in Scranton, Pennsylvania. That was my mall growing up. And they, in the dying days of the arcade scene in the mid to late 90s, they finally got an arcade cabinet. And one of the strange darlings was this rare to find Alien versus Predator 4-player cabinet. For those of you who haven't played it, you get to choose between 2 predators and 2 android humans in an essentially an overtaken Los Angeles, where somehow an alien queen was released. She got into the system, got infecting everything. There are thousands of aliens between 2 predators and 2 cybernetic individuals to try and defeat and destroy. This is a Capcom wonder, as Capcom did so many of these games. And they did it well. I can only imagine the licensing nightmare at the time that they had to go through to get both franchises under one roof. And it is a superb beat 'em up. You get all your standards. There are special attacks. The predators get a giant glaive. One gets a spear. They get their throwing discs. They get their lasers. The humans can grab whatever they can get a hold of. One of them who looks suspiciously like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, kind of like Dutch, right? Yeah,
exactly like Dutch. Funny thing. This is, I don't know if it's historic fact, but one of the rumors of gaming regarding this is that when they were, you guys know the history behind how the Alien and Predator franchises got together, right?
I'm not
have
familiar.
To remind me.
Okay. Yeah. It was actually a joke that began on the set of Predator 2, way back with the Danny Glover version with the skull. Yeah. So for the listeners, for those of you who are younger and don't know, in the Danny Glover Predator 2 movie, very, very late in the movie, when Danny Glover sneaks onto the alien ship for the Predator, spoiler alert at the end here, he notices their Predator trophy wall. And on one of them, there is an alien xenomorph head. This was actually a jab at, I think, I forget who owned Predator at the time, maybe Fox Studios, was a jab at 20th Century, who owned Aliens, and basically to say, our monster from space is tougher than your monsters from space, and here's its head to result. Now, this, of course, set the fanboys wild. They said, oh my God, we're going to get an Alien versus Predator movie. And they hadn't even really noticed that Dark Horse Comics had started making the 2 franchises together. Well, as it so happens, one of the proposed Alien versus Predator movie drafts was a futuristic Los Angeles that has been somehow gotten one of these things back to Earth. It got loose, it bred, and it overran LA. Now, unfortunately, why we didn't get that movie, instead we got the movie we got is Hollywood magic.
Yeah.
But they were able to use that script in Aliens versus Predator, the arcade game, and get us the majesty that is this level by level side scrolling beat 'em up in which you just go after everything on Earth. Quite literally in this case, smashing through hordes of aliens and later Weyland-Yutani soldiers.
Oh, cool. Very cool. It sounds
I feel like everyone would want to be the predators and no one would want to be the
that's the
people.
thing is that the second I saw that, I plunked my coins in. I think the first Predator I played was the one with the spear. Yeah. And just beat the crap out of everything. I think my buddy and I ended up playing that thing for like 2 hours straight, just like pumping quarters into it because we had to beat this thing once we were there. Because our mall, God knows, you're going to chuck that arcade cabinet the second it even looked like no one was playing it. So we had to finish the job.
Nice.
Yeah, and these games, some of them were, especially the arcade cabinets, were definitely designed to be quarter eaters. Like they cheese you. There's no workaround to not get hit on some of those bosses. But it sounds like they even managed to sneak a Terminator in that game.
They did. They did. It's the eerie similarity between the male cyborg and certain well-known Hollywood actors is a little uncanny if you know what you're looking for.
Yeah, well, I'll be back. But I would actually pick the beefcake looking like Arnold, because if not just for the handshakes, those sweltering biceps when you slap ham together.
Funny enough, with that character, technically one of his arms was a full mechanical replacement. So you got the sweltering bicep on this arm, and you got this weird cybernetic like piston exchange and this like giant like block of steel with a articulated fist on the end. I'm like, that is Capcom design 100%. Yeah. It makes no bloody sense. But
right.
It's awesome.
Right. Nice. Man, Capcom did make some good ones of these. I'm sure they'll be popping up later as well. So it's my turn, right, Brian?
Yeah. I think you can go.
Wait, is that right or wrong?
I never remember.
It's mine. I'm taking it. All right. So my honorable mention is Double Dragon 2 for the NES. I think this will not make most people's lists. There are so many more deserving beat 'em up games out there. However, this was my favorite beat 'em up to play at home during my childhood. It means so much to me on a personal level. I would literally play this game for entire days, just over and over and over again. So there was a store where I grew up called Thrifty. It was kind of like what is a CVS or Walgreens now. They actually used to sell ice cream scoops for 10 cents. All right.
Wow.
Might be aging myself there. But it was great to go on a hot summer day, get your 10-cent ice cream cone. One time I was there with my mom and I saw this game, and it was one of the few times that you get that impulse, hey, like, Mom, can I have this? And she actually says yes.
Nice.
Which immediately put this game on a pedestal like no other. It was like, wow, I can't believe she said yes to buying this game. And I do still love this game. Like, I could pick it up and play it right now. And I have done so in the last few years. And it's just always fun to play through. It's not necessarily difficult once you understand the mechanics and the moves, but it's got good enemy design. It's got good level design. The one fault I would say is it asks you to do platforming, and it is not a platformer in the later levels. But
that does not make any sense. A beat 'em up and a platformer.
You have to don't go. Yeah, you have to you have to do the jumping like hurricane kick to jump between platforms. Sometimes it's
it's a terrible idea.
It is a little awkward, especially because the platforms you're jumping on disappear and there are spikes below you, so it's like instant death if you don't do it. But I still love this, and I love the music to it. I can't say enough about it. Very inventive too. It takes you from rooftops to helicopters, and it all tells this like cohesive story that has cutscenes interspersed with the levels, and it always tells you like how you got to the next level. And it was just so cool. It was very cinematic for an 8-bit game, for lack of a better term. But man, love me some Double Dragon 2.
And it's one of the classic ones.
Best in the series, in my opinion.
Sweet.
Nice.
Well, mine is going to be a departure from both of those, as I usually am. But my honorable mention is the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie for Super Nintendo. So this was an often rented game for me because I never wanted to shell out the money for a movie tie-in game. So Blockbuster got a lot, probably the value of the game itself in rentals from me.
Yeah.
So I was in love with the Power Rangers as a kid, and I would watch the show. And when they started making movies, I was just like, wow, this is amazing. We're actually like seeing these things on the big screen. Had the VHS, was a diehard Power Rangers fan. So I loved playing this game because you got to be any of the different Power Rangers. You got to choose from, I think they had like 6 of them. They had Tommy in there as well. And it was, on the Super Nintendo. So it was decent graphics for the time, a little bit better than a Double Dragon, I would say, on NES.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you just went through the movie. And this was the one that had Ivan Ooze. I don't know if you guys remember.
Yeah. Who doesn't remember
Ivan
Ooze?
Yes,
man.
I do remember that character.
Come
yeah.
on.
Kind of like Thanos Light, big purple guy.
Right. Yeah. That's a good way to explain them.
Budget
really
Thanos.
Oh man, the CG in the film though was top notch, man, for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the thing is you got to be a Power Ranger. So you would go through the levels as the kids.
Mhm.
So, I would choose Billy because I like the Blue Ranger a lot. And we know Billy. He's kind of a wimp in his main form. And they would kind of reflect that, when he punches, he like holds his arm up and and then other characters are like, yeah.
Right, of course.
So you run the gamut, but then none of that matters once you get into Power Ranger form. And you would just I think it was like a bar you filled as the level progressed. And at a certain point, you could morph into your Power Ranger form. And then you got all sorts of new attacks. You got all the different weapons that they had. And they would have the Megazord battles. And that was basically just like a fighting game portion where it was big Megazords versus whatever the Putty Patrol would throw at you. But yeah, kind of breaking up the action with a different type of battle. But yeah, they had all the greats. They had Rita in there. They had Ivan Ooze as the
Rita
main.
Repulsa.
Yep.
It's funny. I never played it.
Really?
Yeah, never played it. But bringing back some Power Rangers memories. Goldar, right? All those guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
Goldar was there. I can't remember if all the other villains were in the movies, but they were definitely in the game because I remember seeing and fighting all of them.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Good pick, man.
So that's Power Rangers, the movie, Super Nintendo.
Cool.
All right, Phil, take it away with the list proper here. What's your number 5?
Okay, my number 5 pick is, and this is probably, if you know me, probably not going to surprise anyone because I had to do this. Dungeons and Dragons: Shadow over Mistara. I have been
a good game, dude.
Yes, I've been a tabletop player and DM for many, many years. And anytime video games get a chance to use the Dungeons and Dragons license, I am there for it.
Mm-hmm.
This, actually, for me, surprisingly enough, is a late entry into my series because I knew it existed, but I could never find an arcade cabinet back in the day. I actually purchased this a couple years ago from Steam during a Steam sale because they have a combo pack between this and the Tower of Doom. It's prequel. Now, the fun things about these games is not only are they a beat 'em up in the medieval format, you can pick a fighter, you can pick a cleric, you have a thief, sorcerer, all the fun stuff. But this game also allows for pickups of magic items like magic swords, shields, rings, wands, all kinds of stuff, and the game remembers it. And allows you to utilize these new abilities and these new powers and these new items as you go through the landscape, killing all the classics of D&D lore. So there's goblins, there's kobolds, there's owlbears, there's dragons, there's stuff you've never heard of unless you ever cracked open a monster's manual before. And that was the thing in the arcade too, is that the game actually remembered what level the characters you left off at, even if you ran out of quarters, quit the game, and had to leave, and a new player took over, they could potentially keep your character going on through the end of the game, gaining all new powers, additional gold, silver, and all the extra items along the way. This to me is revolutionary because this is, like I said, this is the true concept of an RPG beat 'em up, where you literally can level in very similar to tabletop fashion. You get goodies that retain, they aren't temporary power-ups that break, and you actually get progression and progress choice. It's very simplified, but you can decide, do I want to go down path X or do I want to go down path Y? And the story does deviate until finally getting you to the final boss, which is a brawl for a doll beat 'em up in just wonderful, wonderful D&D 80s cheese.
Yeah, for sure. So that is a quarter eater on that final boss. That's exactly what I'm referring to
definitely.
When I say some of these beat 'em ups have bosses where like you can't get around dying.
No, they are overpowered and they are unfair. And that was the point, was to part kids from their money.
Yep. Mission accomplished for sure.
Exactly.
That is a great pick. Great pick.
Thank you.
So my number 5 is Turtles in Time by Konami. This is the best Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles beat 'em up in my opinion. I had it personally for the Super Nintendo, but it was a cabinet as well, if I'm not mistaken.
That was.
Yeah. And I
you
just
can get it as a 1-up cabinet now with the 4-player sticks and everything.
Right. So the original, there was another Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game as well. And this just, I thought, was such a simple but cool tweak on that concept. Like, hey, how could we change this up a little bit? Well, I know. let's send them back in time to all these different eras. And each one of the eras is just neat. You know, when you're in the Wild West, right? Of course, what are you doing? You're on a train. You're on a moving train through the Wild West. Why wouldn't you be, right? And they really like lean into all of that. The music is phenomenal. The enemies are great. There is some variety with the move sets when you pick the different turtles. And the combat,
there are superior turtles to others, as always.
For sure. Like, actually, this is interesting. Phil, do you have a favorite Ninja Turtle?
Of course I did. Donatello.
That's right. That is the correct answer.
So, yes, Brian's favorite is Donatello as well. And it's an answer. It's an answer.
You'll come to realize that we have in list off we have very like divergent opinions on a couple of things.
Okay, it might come up later in the form of a question. It might come up. Sure. A few of these might come up later, but yeah, for me it's Michelangelo. As an adult, do I relate to Michelangelo? No, but when I was a kid in the 80s, like, yeah, of course I wanted to be the party dude, right? Like, who didn't?
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, it's Turtles in Time. I'm not 100% sure, but this game may be coming up later on somebody else's list. So I don't want to talk about it too much, just in case anybody else has anything to say about it. But yeah, that's my number 5.
Very good. I love it.
Thanks.
All right. Well, my number 5 is the X-Men Arcade. So this was the 6-player version. So I didn't know anything about X-Men until I played this game. This was my first like foray into seeing X-Men and knowing anything about it. And it immediately made me fall in love. And then I had to consume everything X-Men. And yeah, so I watched the show, read some of the comics. I wasn't as big of a comic person, but I just loved these characters. And it got me to play other X-Men games, which I know I've brought up with Mutant Apocalypse, which is not... That is just a side scroller, which I kept conflating the two, but yeah, this one is for sure beat 'em up. You know, you got that kind of range of motion on the plane, right. And yeah, you're just going at it with different guys, fighting all the different enemies.
So you bring up an interesting point, right? Like, what dictates a beat 'em up? Because at the heart of so many video games, there's that beat 'em up element to them, right? But I think you hit the nail on the head. It is that how you move through the environment is a part of it for sure.
I think that's a big part because, there was another game that I was considering, Jurassic Park 2 for the Super Nintendo. That's the one where you get to, you're just like a guy with a machine gun and you're going from left to right, but you still have to like wait on screen to kill all the enemies. And I think that's another kind of thing that happens in beat 'em ups where you're waiting until all the enemies are gone.
Until the hand comes out, go.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, this one definitely has that. And what the best way to play beat 'em ups, I think, is with a buddy or 5 buddies. And yeah, this game, just the amount of enemies on screen. I mean, just look at any video on the internet about it, and it's like 20, 30 enemies, and your 6 characters if you're playing all of them at once, all at the same time, and it's chugging because all games of this ilk do. But yeah, seeing all the X-Men on screen at once, just a phenomenal masterpiece, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. And so do you guys, what else? I'm curious, what else do you think constitutes a beat 'em up? Obviously punching people in the face, right?
Yeah. So yeah. And that's where, when I was thinking of Jurassic Park, I was like, you just have a gun. I don't know if that's a beat 'em up if you're just shooting dinosaurs. So yeah, I think some sort of like hand-to-hand combat and picking up items. Definitely that plane of movement. I think anything else is a side scroller at that point.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think it's the aesthetic of how beat 'em up works. It is on no holds barred, hand-to-hand combat. It is, I mean, too often the real world's easy for us. If you've ever trained in any kind of fighting technique, yes, they will show you how to disable another human being with your bare hands. And then they turn around and go, but we also have guns. Sorry. Yeah. So problematically, that's not really fun.
Right.
This is kind of a visceral example of, it's me and my buddies. We're really fighting mad. There's an evil corporation or drug dealer or something like that. kidnap my girlfriend or beat up our town or
That's right.
threw mud at the mayor, and we're gonna take out revenge. It's the vertical up and down movement. It's on a 2D plane. It's this back and forth. And I think in some capacity having crazy bosses. Like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
at what point are you going to, as a martial artist, encounter a guy dressed in vintage 80s punk with a 4-foot multicolored spike carrying a wet saw as his weapon and a gang leader of a section of town? Hopefully, God, not ever.
Right.
But if you're in a video game, he's our next target.
Right. And then the next boss is like some sharply dressed man with a perfectly groomed mustache. Right.
Yeah.
It's like, where did
standing
this
there
guy
with the
come
cane,
from?
and he looks like the Kingpin. Speaking of X-Men, he's 400 some pounds.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
He just whacks you with the stick, and half your life goes away.
Yeah. So I will say, like, I think beat 'em ups can be 3D. There have been 3D beat 'em ups. So
yeah,
it
I
doesn't
think there's some good examples and some bad examples. But
yeah. So I think we pretty much summed it up there for sure.
Yeah.
Do you want to go ahead with your number 4?
I'll be more than happy to. And Brian, you actually got it. It is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Turtles in Time.
I had a feeling it'd be coming up again.
It would. Now, again, because I like to tell stories about who I am.
That's
That's
good.
good, man.
Hey, we
arcade-
love that.
The arcade place that I grew up with was a place called Top Dog. Top Dog had the greatest arcade and the worst food you could ever possibly imagine. It was a great place if you were 6 years old to have a birthday, because there was skee ball, there was pinball, there was arcade games. And at the time, this being the late 80s through mid 90s, you could either get a really awful cafeteria style chicken sandwich or a burnt hot dog and a soda for less than $1. So moms and dads were happy because most of their money was going into these damn machines to begin with. But as we so often were of that age, those of us who are a little old, I have to admit, Turtle Fever.
We're in the Graybeard company here.
We
so
are
like,
in the
we're good,
Graybeard
man.
here.
We're good.
Yeah. Turtle Fever was just a thing. And yes, I know saying that sounds like venereal disease, but it is just what they called it back then. Mr. Eastman, Mr. Laird, if you're listening, I'm sorry. But, we had that NES game that was the licensee from Konami. That thing stunk to high heaven.
Yeah.
Sorry if it's your favorite, but none of us realistically who haven't sat there and with just an absolutely masochistic side got through that damn stage trying to disarm bombs with the electrified seaweed. That is where the show ended. So that when
I got through it. I love that.
Oh,
game.
nice. Okay, that's actually where I gave up on that game. I'm like, my dad's going to be so mad. He spent $50 on
Right.
this. I can't finish this. I'm
But
done.
I understand exactly what you're saying.
I think I then went on to Fester's Quest and like doubled down on my stupid.
Wow.
So
yeah. Ouch.
but yeah, that was we got into the Top Dog and we saw dun 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 dun, dun, dun. There it was. It was like as if the heavens had parted, the roof fell off the building, and the golden light from God came down and went, boom, have a Turtles game, kids. Enjoy. And it was amazing. We were so glad we got to play it. My buddy and I at the time, he always had to be, and speaking of having your perfect turtle, he always had to be Leonardo.
The leader.
Solid.
The leader. He was enamored with the dual katanas, had to be the leader. I enjoyed the nerdy stuff and the big stick because it's really easy to pick one of those and hit somebody with it. But we loved the game. Of course, we, like so many people of that age, we pumped money into it. Awesome, blah, blah, blah. And we thought, okay, this is cool. It was a year or two later, they came out with this sequel. And I said, as I'm a history buff, I love this stuff. Okay, it's more Turtles. New York, 3 a.m. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, and here we are. We're beaten. We get to stage 4. Turtle, I will die on turtle soup. That whole shtick that he does. And then we end up getting warped into time and we land 65 million years in the past. Of course, Jurassic Park had been out at this point. So everyone went, dinosaurs. And that's exactly what we got, was beating up dinosaurs. And I have to admit, from the comics, an extremely sort of like rare find in those rock people, which was kind of a split between later cartoon series and the actual comics, because Eastman and Laird did like time and space travel with the Turtles. They ended up on strange planets. And Then it's a pirate ship, which who doesn't love pirates? Then it was the Wild West, which at the time I was like, now that I'm older and I actually love the Wild West and a lot of the lore and history behind it, I'm sitting there going, this is an amazing pull. And the final stage boss of that one, if you haven't played it, is almost like a deep cut from the cartoon series on that one. And then finally we're in the future and it's like, okay, everything looks like a better running Cyberpunk 2077. And here we go.
Yeah.
And it just, even with those weird like scooter bike sections, which I think detracted a little bit from it, is again what makes a beat 'em up. I'm always good for throwing a few like curveballs in there, but that one was kind of like, you're on rails. It's not really going anywhere. Yeah. But it was, if you were of the time and you were a fanatic, you love the Turtles, and this was just the thing to do on a Friday night. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, a few things with the deep cut on the boss of the Wild West level, I guarantee, right? Yeah, but I guarantee. So I read the comic books. My mom bought them for me when Turtle Fever was a thing, and I don't think she knew how adult themed they were. No, how gory I don't think any parent did. They went, "Oh, the kids love it. It'll shut them up for 5 minutes." So I did not tell her. Wow. And I loved those comic books, man. Also, I went to a mall to meet the Ninja Turtles in the height of Turtle Fever. I don't know if I've ever told this story, but I cut school. I cut school to go to the local mall to see 4 sweaty dudes dressed up in turtle costumes. Oh, jeez. And I don't regret a thing. I don't know if you guys remember this. Remember the album they cut? Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I listened to that till we almost broke the tape. We listened to it so often. That's great. We were actually thinking, if they came around our area, we were actually thinking about going. And that's all it would have been, was like 4 sweaty, like musicians who were like, God, we couldn't make it on our own. Right. And you like wedding albums and stuff like that. How did we end up with this gig? Yeah, right. I think it's great, man. What a little perfect pocket time of history, Yep, exactly. I've told this story before, actually. I had an older sister, and she used to always beat me up because she was bigger than me. She was 2 years older than me. Mm-hmm. And the first time I ever beat her up was at the end of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie when TURTLE Power started playing, and I was like, I felt it like coursing through my veins. Oh my God, it powered you up. Yeah, it worked. Oh, no. It worked. Yeah. So I've told that story. Shredder. Yeah, right. I think I've told that story before on the podcast, but yeah, I thought you might appreciate it. Very much. Yeah. Yeah. Nice. So moving on to my number 4, it has been mentioned already, actually, and it was mentioned by Brian. It's the X-Men arcade cabinet by Konami. The mall by me was called Fashion Island Mall in San Mateo, California, and they had an arcade in there called Tilt. And this was the cabinet that me and my friends would immediately seek out, this behemoth of a cabinet, right? And even if it wasn't with my friends, even if my mom was shopping at the mall and I was going to the arcade, even if you just didn't even know the people you were playing with, it was guaranteed to be a good time. Everybody got to pick their favorite. Nobody wanted to pick Dazzler for some reason. But the poor translation I thought was golden too. But the game itself is just awesome. It's those big meaty sprites I always talk about loving. And it's that X-Men lore. And this really benefited too, because it was kind of after this cabinet had been around for a while, the X-Men cartoon started gaining traction. This cabinet was actually built for an X-Men cartoon that never aired beyond the pilot. So the characters in this cabinet, the reason they don't match like the ones from X-Men, the 92 animated series, are because there was like an early pilot in the late 80s that had Dazzler and all these other team members playing major roles. Never made it beyond the pilot, but Konami had this arcade cabinet. So like, let's put it out there. And in my headspace, I'd like to think that the success of this cabinet led to that later animated series that carried the X-Men onto their 90s glory, right? Yeah, man, this game is just a joy to play. Has all the rogues gallery of villains and all your favorite, well, maybe not all your favorite X-Men, but a lot of the ones that matter, a lot of the bigger named ones. Oh, yeah. And love it. One of the best arcade cabinet. I think I had it as my number 1 arcade cabinet. So the fact that it is not my number 1 beat 'em up
should tell you that these other ones I maybe didn't play in the arcade.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah.
Were there any others that were 6 players like this one?
I don't know.
I mean, you get a lot of 4-player ones
Right.
for sure.
I don't think so. The only thing that would have come close, and it's not on my list, but I will eventually be talking about it in my own show, is just in behemoth size was Golden Axe: The Revenge of Death Adder. There was a version that came on almost an 80-inch screen that you could play, and literally the Joy-Cons were almost separate and stood out about 2 to 3 feet away from the actual like screen itself. So you could line up 4 people and pick these 4 characters. But I cannot figure out how, in God's name, any arcade owner must have gotten this monster of a cabinet into their shop, especially if you were already in a mall, unless there was some wizardry they pulled at the back door.
Maybe it was modular. Who knows, right?
Could be. Yeah, it must have come apart.
Yeah. Very cool.
Nice.
So yeah, X-Men.
Very good. Well, here it is for mine. Turtles in Time, my number 4.
Nice.
It had to be here.
Nice.
But hearing you guys talk about the arcades, I certainly played this in an arcade. But you all had, what do we have? Tilt for Ryan, Top Dog for Phil. My arcade was called Bowling because it was just in the bowling alley.
Yes.
And it was like a side thing. Like the bowling alley was the main thing. There was no name to this actual arcade section.
Cool.
But yeah, Turtles in Time, that was the one that I frequented the most. And then in later years, Killer Instinct. And those were the top 2 that I would actually purchase now if I had the space. And they would be relegated to the garage, which I wouldn't want to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, Turtles in Time, you guys have hit the nail on the head and talked about it. Everything that has been said is absolutely true. For as much as I had Power Ranger fever, Turtle fever was 10 times for me. They were just, this whole game was so colorful and, a kid at the time, it was just a dream to play. And the sound effects, just like everything, hearing that Big Apple 3 a.m. All the power-ups, getting pizza, just every single sound effect was, you can hear them in your head now and it's never going to leave.
When you said getting pizza, it like went off in my head.
Exactly. Yep. You hear that?
I still remember from the previous game, the giant iron balls falling down the steps in that burning New York apartment, that dong, dong, dong to this day.
Yeah. Some of these things are just going to be in my head for all eternity and I'm here for it. So yeah, the Turtles take up my number 4 for sure.
Well, my number 3 pick, and you guys have both mentioned it, it is in fact the X-Men 6-person arcade cabinet.
Sweet.
Again, it was a sight to behold in its day. 2 screens, a massively modified arcade body that could accommodate 6 people. Everyone fought to be Wolverine.
Yep.
Because he is the X-Men then, he is the X-Man now. He will probably be the X-Man in the future, however long Disney wants to keep Marvel going. It was cool for me because by that point I had already begun reading the X-Men comics because my cousin and I were both aspiring artists, and we were really big into Jim Lee, who was in the early 90s. He was the man on X-Men before he ever went into Image Comics. So we devoured the X-Men lore and began to find all the side characters and then go back in time to the 80s and even the 70s in some cases where we could find them, do the deep cuts. This is why I knew who Dazzler was the second I saw her, and everyone else went, who the hell is that? Nightcrawler, what's this? Oh, his superpowers, he teleports. Knocks stuff around.
It's one of the coolest X-Men, man.
Exactly. And I felt bad for Colossus because now, because of like the Deadpool movies, people have a little bit better idea of who Colossus is. His super attack was he just got really mad and went, and there was like a light show that occurred around him. So he went on an LSD trip and somehow enemies died. I have no idea. But yeah, you got to beat up all of these, various things that Magneto had set up. You went into the Savage Lands, which again is a extreme deep cut. If you don't know it, it's basically Marvel's version of the Hollow Earth, where like Antarctica actually has like this land full of dinosaurs and stuff like that. And they end up there, they all over. And the greatest flubbed line in arcade beat 'em up history,
That's right.
X-Men Welcome to Die.
Welcome to Die.
Which is just chef's kiss. That says Konami beat 'em up.
Yeah.
Wasn't this Magneto was Master of Magnets as well?
Yes, he was the
Yes,
master of
that's right.
magnets. So anytime he went near a fridge, he was done for.
No, I was a big fan of the X-Men comics. Man, I think we need to talk about comic books next time you're on the show or something.
I'd be more than happy to.
Yeah. I think we'd have a lot to talk about for sure. Do you still read them by any chance?
I haven't in a long time. I try and every once in a while to keep up. I know that a lot of cases over the years, my tastes have changed.
Yeah,
I did. There was a one that I actually started reading because I saw it bouncing around the internet for a while called Rat Queens, which is essentially a D&D world, but it's an all-female cast.
Oh, cool.
And their story, actually, even what I read, was very good. They were just, 4 ladies of different, an elf, a human, halfling, whatnot, trying to do what characters do in D&D worlds, make some money and get one over on the rich folks. But they ended up getting embroiled in this world-altering plot, and they were, not really, it's not a romance story. They weren't interested in things. They were looking to get rich quick, and oopsie, now we have to be heroes.
Right. The unlikely heroes. Yeah.
Unlikely hero. Other than that, the only comic I've read and reread ultimately is James O'Barr's The Crow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good one for sure. I always tout Hoopla or
I knew you were gonna say
Overdrive.
it.
Yeah. So if you have a local library card, make sure to get Hoopla and Overdrive. I got all my comic books right on this baby right here. Read them before bed. Love it.
Nice.
Love it. Speaking of D&D, my number 3 is it is my turn, right? You're looking at me like it's not my turn.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yep.
It's Chronicles of Mistara, which is that double pack you talked about. So I'm kind of cheating because I'm choosing 2 games. These are Capcom beat 'em ups. It is the Tower of Doom and Shadows over Mistara. They're both superb beat 'em ups in their own right. I actually kind of like the way Tower of Doom plays better. Like I feel like the characters move better in it. However, Shadows over Mistara is definitely the superior game because of that depth that you talked about, Phil. I just think the combat is so deep too. There are actually like fighting move combos in this. You could do like fireball movements and chain together, not just combos, but have like each character has special moves, but they also have these like fighting movement inputs that mix up your attacks in a way that like doesn't drain your life, right? Your special attacks drain your life, as is the way in so many beat 'em ups.
Yeah, that's a common trope.
Absolutely. But you actually don't realize what the combat is capable of doing in your first playthrough. And I think that's why this game is so good, is because it just begs for multiple playthroughs, not just because of the depth of combat, but because of what you were talking about. You level up, your character levels up at the end of the levels, and you get different weapons and armor and shields. You have sub weapons. There are item shops that you run into where you could buy like healing potions, and it has all that deep D&D like mechanics in a very shallow way, which is good, because if you don't have the time for some of these like deeper, CRPGs, like this is going to be great for you. It has those branching paths. You can choose to go one way or the other, save the village or continue on your trek up the mountain. And each one will have its benefits and downsides to it. And it has all the different classes. So as soon as you have one class figured out, which you won't have in the first playthrough, as far as like the depth involved, there are still multiple other classes for you to get a hold of. I really like the parallax scrolling it did with like those staircase levels.
It did.
Yeah,
it was
cool.
A very unique feature of the time. It kind of, you sat there and realized, you almost feel like if I looked far enough over the arcade cabinet, I can kind of see the lower levels and what's going on.
Yeah. And I liked how you could see the enemies coming up behind you on the staircase in the background. They'd show them like running up, the little tiny versions of the sprites coming up behind you, and then they'd pop in from that side of the screen. Just a lot of like really cool, inventive stuff, playing with foreground and background. This is probably, even though there are beat 'em ups on my list that are above this is by far the deepest when it comes to the systems involved. And I love it.
Most definitely. And like I said, I recommend to people, and I will actually I'm in the process of writing it now, probably in March, my episode will be debuting, of what I feel is the next evolution of that is Forgotten Realm Deep and Stone. It was on the PS2. It's D&D, very much a beat 'em up. you play a fighter, a wizard, and a thief. They all act together on the same screen. You have a team super that you can do. Everyone has super moves, but you level up. You get magic items, you get gear. It is, I think, the best modern evolution of the beat 'em up D&D formula that they were able to do since Tower of Doom or Shadow over Mistara.
Cool. I can't wait. Look forward to the episode, man.
Oh, thank you.
Nice.
All right,
teaser
Brian.
there. All right. So my number 3, this is a game that is immediately draws up some imagery for sure. And it's Dragon's Crown. So I don't know if either of you are familiar with this game. It was on the PlayStation. It was on the Vita.
I've definitely heard of it before.
I've heard of it, yeah.
Was there a remake of this too?
Yeah, they did like a remaster version of it.
Right. For like the PS4 or something?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's only on the PlayStation consoles, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah.
I should have looked up who made it. But all of the characters are very exaggerated. So the men are very buff and muscular. The women are very buxomous and
feminine,
outrageous.
Yeah.
But so, you know, that's out there, but the animation is so fluid.
Yeah.
I'm thinking
now I remember this.
Yeah, exactly. The cover, right?
Yeah.
So it drew quite a lot of controversy, if I
Yes,
remember correctly.
okay. But to that point, the animation is very fluid. So this is, you know, this is kind of that next step in the beat 'em ups where we're actually getting some really nice graphics. But the other part of this that I liked is it was almost like Borderlands with the loot drops that were happening. So there were just like new weapons that you would get with all sorts of different stats on them, and you would just kind of change them out. You got to choose all the different characters, like I said, sorceress, elf, thief, fighter, all that kind of stuff. So I don't. This is an example of a beat 'em up that was still on the one plane, but all of the characters would kind of come and like overlap each other, and you were still fighting from left to right, basically. And you would still need to move forward after all of them were destroyed. The other cool thing I liked about this was one of the first experiences that I had of playing on the PS3, but then also bringing my save over to the PS Vita. And the game looked pretty much the same between the two. And I loved playing on the Vita because, it was this great screen, OLED screen that, you could just bring your save and do everything that you could do in the home console version. So just that little part of it was so mind-boggling to me, when this game came out. And yeah,
seems like a good game for that experience too, because it probably wasn't
Yes.
pushing the limits, of either system, right?
Exactly.
That's
yeah.
cool.
Yeah,
That's cool.
nothing was chugging along. It
Definitely.
worked great on both. So yeah, I didn't ever beat it, but I got pretty far in it and liked the gameplay enough. I have not played that many beat 'em ups. This was a harder list for me to come up with, as Ryan had a very hard time with the Metroidvania list.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah,
I had to put some time into it.
Speaking of, I know you mentioned you were playing Dread. It was, I think was that my number one? That was my number one, right? Metroidvania.
I believe so.
Yeah. So I don't know if you're enjoying it. I'm going out on a limb to assume you are, but man, I loved Metroid Dread.
Oh yeah, no, I'm
impressed me.
definitely enjoying it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
So that's Dragon's Crown. That's it for me.
Nice. All right, we're in our number twos.
Okay.
All right. For my number 2, I'm going way back. I'm going to one of the pillars, one of the granddaddies of the fighting genre. Final Fight.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Final Fight possibly would have been Street Fighter 2 had Capcom gone a different direction. If you watch any number of background lore on it, it was originally in its creation called Street Fighter 89, which was about the year when it would have come out. But the heads of Capcom decided to go a different direction and made it an arcade coin-op beat 'em up. This is, as I said, it's one of the definite pillars of gaming outside of, I think, Double Dragon or, something like River City Ransom or something like that. This is where we get some later characters that we would see in the Street Fighter series, Guy, Cody, and of course, Mayor Mike Hagar.
Yeah.
America's fighting mayor.
He is.
He is. And only in America, or at least Capcom's version of America.
Right.
Can a man come from nowhere, from the gym to the fighting pit to government office, and then go, this gang kidnapped my daughter.
Yeah.
Let's go. And he's still wearing the wrestling tights under his uniform.
I feel like the first 3/4 of that happened for a governor of a certain state, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's strange how sometimes games parallel real
Right.
life.
Yeah.
But yes, actually, that is it. It is a bare bones plot. There is a nasty evil gang that runs Metro City. They're called the Mad Gear. Each one of the bosses has broken a part of town. They are their little fiefdoms. You have the unknown master of ceremonies somewhere in the distance in the Golden Tower.
Right.
But the mayor, he knows how to combat crime because he's fought it with his bare hands. Suplexed it several times too. Gets to be mayor. They kidnap his daughter. He goes to his buddy and says, they kidnapped my daughter. She's your girlfriend. You're a mixed martial artist. You got to help us. He's like, I'm going to go save my girlfriend. And out of nowhere, his gym buddy goes, she's my friend. I'm coming too. And you get to pick between, it's a 2-person game, but you get to pick between these 3 characters, Cody, Guy, and Hagar. And you just go ham on every goon in the city. Yes, they're going to be repetitive. You're going to see the same 5 sprites come up over and over again with increasing life bars and goofier names. The bosses are, at least they're big, they're unique, they are stupid, and I'm there for it. I absolutely love it. They are every kind of weird trope you could have: the punk rocker, the dirty cop, the crazy samurai guy, and we're all good. And that's all you need to know until you get to the end boss. And again, 1989, it turns out the bad guy has got your daughter in his power chair and a crossbow. And your final hit is to knock his ass out of 40 floors out of a glass ceiling and just watch him fall into eternity.
It's beautiful. It's poetry in motion.
It is.
So I played Final Fight, I think, on the SNES.
Yep.
Never really played a whole lot
actually.
of it. Yeah. Never played a ton of it, so it didn't make my list, but I'm glad to hear it got its due because it is one of those pillars, as you say.
Mm-hmm.
This was actually a game. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, the SNES port of, I think any of them probably was one of the better ones. Mm-hmm. At the time, it definitely had to remove a lot to get to fit on a SNES cartridge, but you got the idea. You got the feeling.
Yeah.
This was a game that was ported to the GBA, and that's where I first saw it, honestly, was the GBA port. I never played it, but it was always one that was enticing to me. Wow. So yeah, I bet that one is severely lacking. Probably.
I mean, Brian's got it going on though. He wants a Final Fight on the GBA. He gets Killer Instinct on the Game Boy. Like, advanced. Right. Like, man, you're picking all the good ports, dude. Nice. Love your handhelds, man.
That's right. I do.
It was an interesting time too. You mentioned this could have been Street Fighter 2, and like they were doing some funky stuff with that with the Street Fighter franchise. They had like Street Fighter 2049. Do you remember that one where you were Ken?
Yeah, you were basically cybernetic Ken. Like, you had his head and the rest of you was a robot.
Right. Yeah. It was a weird NES game. Yeah. It was a weird time for sure.
I remember I had them just because, like I said, I record the ones that stuck best with me didn't mean that's all I had.
Right.
I had that one. I'm like, even as a kid, I'm sitting there going, what's going on?
Like, this isn't Street Fighter.
Yeah,
exactly. So my number 2 is another one of those pillars. It's one I thought you were going to mention when you were talking about ones similar to Final Fight, and it is a Streets of Rage game. So some of the games I played this week that I didn't mention in the beginning, I played Streets of Rage 2 and I played Streets of Rage 4. Both of them I played again to decide which one would make my list. And I have to say it's Streets of Rage 4.
This is my number 2. So let's go through
talk
it.
about it, man.
Yeah, go for it, guys.
We should have played together.
We should have played together.
So I played it as well. I have a version myself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So this is by .emu. I love Streets of Rage 2. Playing through that again was a gem. It was a real treat. They bring aliens into it. It's really weird. They have samurai. They have all those like same tropes you talked about with Final Fight. Cool characters. They just get progressively weirder names. But Streets of Rage 4 does all that, and it does it with like this huge, beautiful nod to the nostalgia of the prior games. It's like you fight the same characters from Streets of Rage 2, but now they're like older. And the big villain.
Are those the arcade ones? Because you have to like go and punch arcade machines,
right?
And then fight them.
No, but like some of the bosses. Remember the guy with the perfectly groomed mustache who takes off his shirt and wears the suspenders? He was in Streets of Rage 2. Like these are characters from other games that are like brought back in by Mr. X up in his golden tower, right? And it was so cool to just run through it, especially almost immediately after playing Streets of Rage 2. Is it a better design game than some of the earlier entries on my list, like especially Chronicles of Mistara? Not necessarily, but like it lacks the depth of that game. But man, it is just so much fun to play. And what it does have in depth is the amount of characters you can choose. They instituted DLC into this game where some of the people you fight, like there's a female police officer you fight multiple times throughout the game, but you can unlock her and play as her. And it is so like freeing to now be able to like lay that beat down on somebody else, and just each character plays differently, feels differently, has different move sets. All the original characters are there. You do have to unlock a few of them, but man, you're even dealing with like the next generation because time has passed in that world too. So, when you're playing as these characters like Axel and Blaze, they're now 25 years older or 20 years older or whatever. And it's cool to see that side of them where, maybe it's their kid who's now involved. It's so cool, man. And the music's great. The gameplay is great.
The music is so good. That had me hooked the whole time. And it's dynamic too. As you're like moving through the level, like more instruments will get introduced and it evolves over time. The art style was what drew me into this. This is how I draw characters, honestly. Yeah. Like I have drawn the commissioner boss before, just like in my own head. And like, I don't know, like that art style really spoke to me because like, I feel like that's how I perceive characters. And when you're doing these exaggerated things, kind of like Dragon's Crown I was talking about, but you make them look so ridiculous. And that is like an essence of these beat 'em up games. Yeah. It's so cool to see those big characters.
Right. Like, sorry, go ahead.
No, exactly. I'm, like I said, my drawing style too, art, I consider myself far more to be a cartoonist than a real life, lifelike artist. But that is the exact art style you're talking in both of those games, Dragon's Crown and Streets of Rage 4, that I gravitate to. Yeah. It is okay, and a lot of artists don't like to mention this, but guess what? It's okay to have cartoony, exaggerated characters and go for it. If your art style is a little bit, and that's where you go, I honestly don't feel that it gets enough, enough good said behind it. So when I saw this art style come up for Streets of Rage 4, I'm like, there again, speaking my language, this is what I love.
Yeah, and it's perfect pixel art. It really is. It's funny. It's like they took speaking of what you're saying with this exaggeration, they took the character model from like Streets of Rage 2 for Axel and just made it like thicker. So he looks more like ridiculously muscular. There's a wrestling character in the game who is like more thick than he is tall, I think.
Yeah.
It's just, it's great, man. I love
He's like 6 feet tall and 8 feet wide. I'm like, okay, I'm going for it. Let's do it.
Right. It's got a cool little overview of the map too, when you go between the different places. And it does that thing that Double Dragon 2 did, where it shows how you get to the next place. And there's all these like neat little cut scenes between to show like what the new drama is that's unfolding. Yeah, man, I love this game. Love it.
Yeah, this was my first foray into anything Streets of Rage, and I knew that I had to play it. This was the easiest one for me to digest because it's on Game Pass. It's brand spanking new. It was like last year or maybe 2 years old.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was enamored with it. You know, all my picks up to this point have been older games, and that's what I've played mostly for beat 'em ups. So to see those games like up against this, it's so crazy to see the evolution that's occurred here. And I'm going to keep playing this game.
Yeah,
like I said,
let's do it. Let's co-op.
beat 'em up is not my genre, and that's why I had such a hard time with this. But this game was so much fun to just like keep playing. I haven't died yet. Like I'm still on my main run.
Wow, that's great.
And I mean, I'm on normal, so like it's probably, you know, a bit easier than
I don't think it's the easiest game. It's not like Streets of Rage 2 I could run through and like not get hit in the first few levels. There's ways to like engage in throws and just like get around attacks. It's really simple. Streets of Rage 4 I didn't find it to be that easy. But I will say this now to you, Brian, no pressure, but if you ever drop me a message like, hey, Streets of Rage 4, I'll be there.
Okay,
right?
Sweet.
Yeah,
I'll be there.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I will say there's an odd difficulty spike in the later levels where even I'm playing and going, oh, wait a minute, I was doing so well and now I'm really getting kicked around here.
Yeah.
What did I miss? And I don't know if it's just part of the, because I ran on normal too. I don't know if it's part of the programming or if there's a weird compensator that if you start doing really well, the enemy starts hitting harder or coming up with new tactics. But just be warned of that.
Yeah. It is odd because it's almost like there's a downside to that too. I felt like the later bosses weren't as hard as some of like that almost like late middle section got really difficult. And then it kind of like tapers off for the final two bosses. It was like, okay, like this isn't that bad. But yeah, I agree. It's it doesn't have the best like difficulty curve, but a lot of fun to play, man. A lot of fun.
Yeah. I'm going to keep going with it. I'm really excited about it.
Do it.
Nice. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah.
So we're in our number one.
Yeah. So that was my number 2. So yeah, take it away, Phil. Number 1 here.
This is it.
All right, number 1.
I know.
And this was a difficult one because I've played so many of these bloody things over the years. I played some really good ones, which I mentioned already. A couple more, which I'm going to be talking about on my show eventually when I get to the arcade life. I played a lot of really bad ones. I played a lot of really bad ones on console. But my number 1 pick is, and I was waiting on this, it is in the Streets of Rage family. And I have to mention, I must be very weird because all of my favorite franchises was Streets of Rage 4 is one, or Streets of Rage 4 is one of them, Streets of Rage in general. The Resident Evil's games, I like the sequels better. I like RE2 is one of my top favorite games of all time. RE4, the later sequels. The Streets of Rage games, the even numbered games are my favorites, but my number 1 is Streets of Rage 2.
Yeah.
No holds barred, all time beat 'em up, Streets of Rage 2. At the time, I know there was an arcade cabinet version of it in Japan, but it came to us on the Sega Genesis.
Yeah.
It was one of the founding stones of the Sega Genesis, one of their packs that they gave away. You could either pick Sonic or you could pick Streets of Rage, the Streets of Rage 2 in this case. As I said before in my own show, I remember I have this very vivid memory of a time when video game commercials were a thing. Yes. Now, maybe someone looks at this on YouTube, can't fact check me, but Sega had a really, to the point of are you not aware that you're advertising to children? Because some of what you're doing is borderline weird.
You should listen to our last episode. It was all
actually
about
in the process of listening to that one too. I was listening to it on the way home from work today.
Nice.
But literally, it is a game. It's this poor kid. He must be like 5th or 6th grade. Goes to middle school one day. He sees that the big cartoony kid, almost like very lumpy, unfortunate child with these 2 little 12-year-old girls on his side. He comes home. He's got a wedgie. He's got a black eye. He goes home and plays Streets of Rage all night. Streets of Rage 2. He is just mastering the moves, the throws, the arm breaks, the hurls, the slams, the special attacks. He comes to school the next day, and there's the same bully, and it's smash cut to the Sega Genesis logo. Here's some footage of the game, and all of a sudden you cut back, and here's the kid. Now he's got the 12-year-olds on his shoulders, and the bully is licking his shoes, and they go Sega.
Yeah, this is the one where he's like, say it.
Oh no,
Sega. Yeah. It's like saying uncle, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And as a kid, you're like, oh, that's so cool. And I came back as an adult and went, that's child porn. I don't know what's going on. This is so weird. Why do I remember this? But thankfully, the game completely diverges from that. I mean, it's a one-off commercial. Thank God it has nothing actually to do with the game other than pure advertising gaff.
Right.
But it is. So you get this unrelenting sense of power when you pick the cast. It is a direct sequel to Streets of Rage 1, which was okay. It existed.
Yeah.
The premise, of course, being that one of the original three is kidnapped, and now Axel and Blaze have to go out and save him. They're down a man, and the cops can no longer help them because they were all ex-cops now. So they hire the big pro wrestler dude, who's a friend of Axel's, and they manage to recruit the absolutely early 90s kid you could think of, Adam's younger brother, Skate. And his whole thing is he wears skater's gear, and he has not roller skates, roller blades on. And somehow he can do forward flips, kicks, and these amazing spirals while wearing roller blades and never fall down and break his ass. He lands perfectly every single time. Every time. And like literally breakdancing in the streets, and you are the thrashing people. Like, I mean, I can only imagine veritably there must have been just a wake of EMTs sitting there going, we got to stop these guys because we can't deal with these level of injuries. The hospitals in 3 counties are full because of these 4 people.
Yeah.
You know, and the bosses got crazy. You got this guy who looks suspiciously like the Ultimate Warrior in one of the levels.
That's right.
You know, you're fighting robots in the later stages. You actually end up beating up these aliens attraction of a fun house.
Mm-hmm. It was a fun house, wasn't it?
Yeah.
God, yeah, that's right.
Sure. You're fighting
do the pirate ship too.
Yeah, you're fighting through the pirate ship and into the alien arcade. You're fighting inside of a baseball stadium. You're fighting on a ship against this giant, you know, ethnic stereotype of a Russian by the end. You got ninjas everywhere. You've got thugs. You've got all this crazy stuff. And it's just this absolute power trip that is backed up by, and I don't talk about soundtracks too much because I'm not a musician and I'm not a music tech. I don't feel it's something I can speak to other than the beauty of the symphony, the well put together orchestra. But this electronic soundtrack, and I can never remember who the soundtrack person was who worked on Streets of Rage 2. He came back and he put this absolute banger of a techno, like heavy metal track together. And you just feel like it edges you forward even more as you fight. The stage, everything has these wonderful melodic sounds to this nightclub beat, and you just get driven to destroy. Before you finally meet Mr. X in what is supposed to be the final showdown.
Right. So it is I think the album for Streets of Rage 2 is done by Motohiro Kawashima and Yuzo Koshiro.
Yes, Yuzo Koshiro. That's the name I usually hear, but you know, that does sound right.
Yeah. No, I could definitely see why it would be Streets of Rage 2. 100%. Yeah, for me it was 4, but I get it. Like, it's hard to argue against it. Both are just incredible games.
Literally, I played that till the game began to cheat. We played it till it broke. We mastered that thing back then. And I say again, same friend of mine that I'd had for years would join me in other beat 'em ups. We would sit in my grandmother's house because that's where my Genesis lived, and we would spend the entire weekend just rampaging. Yeah, and we played it till it broke.
Same. No, I had a friend who had a Genesis. I did not. And it was Samurai Showdown was another big one. But yeah, man, loved Streets of Rage 2. I've been playing it for decades. That's crazy to think about.
I've repurchased it several times across the decades, and I keep coming back to it.
We actually just recently got the NSO because we split it between 4 people, where the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack was only like $20 each.
Yep.
So that's how I was able to play it again.
Streets of the Rage on there?
It is. Streets of Rage 2.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, Streets of
You
Rage.
can also buy it on the Genesis Classics, also on Nintendo Switch, because that's how I got it recently. You can also find it on Steam. It's on most platforms at this point.
Yeah. So speaking of the NSO and that Genesis, I've been playing a lot of Genesis games lately. And another one I played like the wheels off of, for lack of a better term, with my friend was Golden Axe. And it didn't make my list because I replayed it and I'm like, man, this is not as good as I remember it being. This is really like bland in one note. you know.
That's the problem too, is I kept looking at that one going, I remember this in my head. Was it maybe just that one arcade game? Because I came back to this in the Genesis and went, this is stilted. This is almost like stop motion animation graphics. It's so far back in the day.
Yeah.
It's just not what I remember.
I mean, even if you compare the graphics in that to Streets of Rage 2, like there's a marked improvement. But I still love Golden Axe. I still played through the whole thing. So like, goes to show you it's at least still fun to play.
Exactly.
But my number one, man, so I might be catching some crap for this. Earlier, I alluded to the fact that there are 3D beat 'em ups, right? There are. And my number one is a 3D beat 'em up. No less. It is a 3D beat 'em up I have not been playing for decades. I have only been playing for like a week. And it is Sifu. It is developed by Slow Clap. This is wholeheartedly my number one, even with all these other wonderful titles on my list that have something this game doesn't, which is nostalgia. And that could be a very strong pull. So I think the fact that I would without doubt put this as my number one says a lot. It's not just recency bias. I just think this shines in a way that none of the other entries do. It goes in artistic directions that none of these other games do. And it's incredible. The world around you incorporates this mysticism that you never know what's going to be on the other side of a door when you open it in this game. I don't want to spoil anything. It's a fresh game, but you're always looking forward to clearing the room, which in itself is a joy. I mean, when you get a handle on the gameplay, this game sings. There is no better feeling than to feel the haptic feedback of clearing a room by just beating their faces in and not even getting touched in the process. It is very cool. Power trip in a bottle, right? And then you open the door and the next room you go into is immediate visuals that just blow your mind and go in a direction you didn't expect. I definitely want to marinate on this game some more. I'm not done playing it, but the fact that I have made it all the way through the campaign, I've beaten the story of the game. I already know it's my number one. There is a secret ending I haven't achieved and things like that. So I'm not through playing it. I want to keep going. It will be a game that I perhaps play for decades when all is said and done. But it's extraordinary. It's inventive, challenging, and beautiful. And I'm really, really hopeful that it ushers in a new generation of beat 'em ups that push the genre in new directions. Because this is the blueprint that other games can take and do so much with. It doesn't have to control the same. It's not necessarily about the controls. This is a difficult game, and the controls are unique to this title. So, but I mean, just the way that you are able to move through the environment and use those tools to your advantage, and the way the unlockables are done and the way you unlock skills as you go along, this is a wonderful starting point for other developers to go off of and truly make a great generation for 3D beat 'em ups. I think that the possibility is there, and Sifu has shown the path.
Definitely. I know that's one I'm looking forward to getting. I haven't gotten it yet. I will be purchasing it. I'm going to wait for the Vengeance edition. It's going to come out for the PS5, the physical copy. But even I haven't watched a full playthrough yet, but even so far what I've seen of other, famous Let's Players playing it, and on my own, just sitting there going, thank you.
Yeah.
This is what I was hoping for. This is what I want brought back, because, okay, you don't have to have a 60 plus 100-hour epic game with all the bells and whistles. You can have a 6 to 10 hour beat 'em up for a reasonable price, or 6 to 10 hour game. And this is a new generation leading the charge. Now, when you said 3D games, my heart started to beat like this, because I was like, oh my God, one of these people is going to say Fighting Force. I'm going to have to talk about that turn. No.
Oh,
so
God.
Thank you.
Could you imagine if that was my number one?
Oh God, I was going to say, we have to talk.
Yeah.
No, that is, and for anyone currently playing that game, I hope you are enjoying the heck out of it, because it sends a developer message that we want more of this.
Yeah. It's so pretty well.
Yeah, it did. It looks like somebody on the PC has already modded in John Wick.
Yeah, John Wick.
Jeez.
There's a Daredevil version. There's Chun-Li. There's a lot of
my
people
God.
you could play as. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm going to have to look at a few of those because those
Yeah.
might be fun.
Let me know when Thomas the Tank Engine is there, and then
It's
I'll
gonna,
play it.
you know, it's on its way,
Yeah.
buddy. You know, it's on its way.
He'll scream like a dragon and sound like the Macho Man.
And I have said this before. Anytime I hear somebody who's about to get this game or is playing the game and finds the difficulty too steep, I'm like, just like, please reach out. I will give you tips that don't spoil anything, but like, I'm not like tooting my own horn, but I've made it through the campaign. I'm pretty good at this game. I actually have a no death run of the first level on our YouTube channel. If you want to go click it out, the link will be in the show notes. And if you want to check it out, Phil, I would be honored.
I would love to,
because like it's really getting a grasp of the combat, and once you do that, like it's just such an enjoyable experience. It's not as simple as other beat 'em ups, right? Like other beat 'em ups, you could spam attack and like make your way through and have fun with it. This isn't going to be that type of game, but it has a wonderful system.
And can I just say one thing about difficulty in games?
Mhm.
Okay. Again, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine.
And I know that a lot more knowledgeable heads on these subjects have spoken, and you're just, some guy from, middle of nowhere America
Right.
here is spouting his last minutes of 15 fame to go. But, I can fully understand why, for reasons of accessibility. I've worked with a lot of people who have difficulty playing games because they have disability issues. So accessibility is wonderful. Some games you just want to have an easy mode, like some CRPGs. I'm glad they started adding the tell me a story mode.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to slog through and save scum death after death. I just want to enjoy the game, enjoy the story, and get through it. I don't feel that Sifu is a game that needs an easy mode. I would say if it has an accessibility for those of you who might have, a physical impairment that brings down your reaction time or something like that, I could say have an accessibility mode. But you want to still give people a challenge, and you want to give them the experience. I mean, this is why you don't give Dark Souls an easy mode, because half of the challenge is the challenge itself, the planning, the reflex timing, things like this. I think it's not a bad thing to say, this is how we're putting it out. And if it's difficult, okay, you might have to bump up your wick and deal with it.
Yep.
It's not so much we're giving people again, I realize that game critics don't have the time. They're reviewing 10 games a month. They got to write their articles, and the grist mill of the company comes first. They got to blow through this as part of their job. Sorry, folks. I'm not going to feel bad about you. You're crying into your paycheck. This is what you get paid to do.
Yeah, exactly. I get paid to write about video games.
I wish I did.
Do it for
free.
Me. Yeah, exactly.
But I could see for definitely individuals who have some accessibility issues. Okay, we'll do something with that. But I don't think it necessarily needs an easy mode. This is a game built on challenge, or at least so it seems. And I'm saying this as someone who's an outside observer. I haven't had my hands on it yet. And I realize these little myths are getting old, so they don't quite have the reaction time they used to. But I'm still willing to give it an all-out shot. Yeah. And this looks like it might be, like I said, heralding a new era of something good.
Yeah. And I'm with you. Accessibility aside, I think it is getting an easy mode. And I'm kind of like, I'm a little like, I'm not upset. It means nothing to me. If it'll help other people, that's fine. But I'm with you. I don't think games need an easy mode. And honestly, it was games like Dark Souls that taught me like death is a part of video games. It takes patience. It takes figuring it out. And I appreciate that. I came to love games like Returnal because of that. And this honestly too, Sifu as well. So yeah, I mean, hey, if you want to use easy mode, go for it. No judgment here. But I also think the developer should be able to put out its vision without having to like cave on that if they don't want to.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
If it was never part of their plan. If it was, then fine, like whatever. But I just hope that kind of pressure is not being put on developers. That's all.
Well, we're about to see Elden Ring and the ability to kind of circumvent enemies.
I know,
because it's open world, right? I mean,
can't wait.
all those games are kind of just like corridors where you have to face them. Now you can just kind of walk around, and we'll see how that.
So there you go. You got your easy mode.
Just
walk away.
Oh, and I will. I undoubtedly will go. That guy's too big. Like I'm gonna go.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna see some probably like 15-foot tall fire horse with 16 spears hanging out of its butt, and I'm gonna go. I'm not doing this.
Not today. Yeah, exactly. So all right, Brian. I'm sorry. We really ate into time there. But what's now? It's you have the floor, man.
I'm really surprised that I get to be the only one to talk about this. Castle Crashers, that is my number one beat 'em up. This was the only beat 'em up that I had played at the time that it came out, where I was like, okay, this is what I've been looking for from this type of game. And for me, that was the RPG elements. That was, and I know you guys have discussed, that has been in other games before, but this one was a little more catered to me. It was very simplified. You're just beating up enemies and you're getting skill points to then slot into different areas, and you can play with your friends, which this was another instance of, okay, now we can play online and I can just play and get 3 friends that I don't have to like round them up. So I think a lot of the games on my list are like, all right, beat 'em ups are cool, but I want to play it on the portable, or I want to play it with friends online. So those kind of walls are being taken down for me, where I can say like, hey, let's play Streets of Rage 4, and we don't have to like be sitting on the couch next to each other. Right. But Castle Crashers,
I would like to sit on a couch.
Totally, yes.
I'm just saying.
Man, I go back to, so that was my first Returnal experience, was on your couch playing it. You're like, here's the controller, and I felt I was doing pretty good. Then I realized like, okay, yeah, I did pretty good, because like I had all these abilities that you had unlocked, and I remember spending your ether like every opportunity I got, and you're like, can you not do that?
No, like, I was like, all right, buddy, maybe slow down on that. That's hard to come by.
I was going through every like whatever the regenerator thing,
at the beginning.
Like, let me take all these things.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Right.
You're dying in the next room. Doing it again. Yeah.
Whoops, I fell down the pit. Good thing I had that regenerator.
Yeah.
But yeah, Castle Crashers, it is a very distinct art style. It is so cartoony. It is the brightest and most colorful beat 'em up that has ever existed. And it has a good amount of, let's say, internet humor to it, where there's like giant cats and they're attacking you, and everything's like kind of got a little bit of blood on it everywhere, and it's very silly. I will say, you're riding on like little compy sword dinosaurs, and you're like twice as big as they are. So there's a little bit of fun that this game is poking at. When you're hitting like big bosses, their eyes like bulge out, and
nice.
There's some almost like Cuphead kind of humor to it.
Yeah, right on.
But yeah, it's a beautiful game. I mean, it just came on Switch like maybe a year or two ago. They ported it there. So there's your probably best opportunity to play it is, on one of the newer consoles. But I would not sleep on this game. If you've never played Castle Crashers, I mean, this is a really good beat 'em up.
Yeah.
Never played Castle Crashers.
Yeah, me either. I wanted to. And the Switch has been such an amazing clearinghouse so far of like, hey, we're willing to just, throw Nintendo a bone here. Right. And grab it. And I know Nintendo and their whole licensing in the past shtick, and
we'll be getting into that later this month.
Right.
We'll be getting into that later this month. Little foreshadowing there.
Yeah. They're I don't, it's one of these things where I love video games, but I don't necessarily love the industry that makes them. I think it's bad decisions, terrible things happening at some of these companies, a certain amount of grift, and very boardroom decisions. I mean, I get it. It's a company. They're out there to make money, but every once in a while, we get a gem. We get just enough of that to say, okay, we'll keep coming back. Give us the good stuff.
Right.
And the Switch has been an amazing clearinghouse. So if Castle Crashers is on there, I think I know what I'm going to be purchasing next.
Yeah. I think you'll like it.
It's probably pretty inexpensive now too, right?
Oh, less
I would
than
hope
$20.
so.
Yeah, they can't charge more than that. And I think there are some improvements to it. I couldn't tell you exactly what, but I remember seeing a trailer when they were talking about it for the Switch and saying like, and now we have this. So that's probably one of the better ways to play it. But yeah, I wholeheartedly, I'm really surprised that this wasn't on the list. When I was looking at kind of other internet lists, this was always on there. And in my mind, I was like, yeah, like that was going to be my number one from the start of this.
Very cool.
So good list, guys. We actually had a lot of similar games, which goes to show you like these are clear cut, the best of the best here.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we kind of mentioned it before. Well, I guess we want to get into our mission debrief before we talk about next week for sure. So let's take a little break, get into our mission debrief, and then we'll go on to next week's episode. All right, so Phil, our mission debrief. I hope.
Let me just go ahead and interrupt you guys one more time. I told you I was good at this, dude. I told you I was good at this. So, Phil, I have a few questions for you, man.
Yes, of course.
Okay. How long does it take to write your episodes?
How long does it take me to write an episode? I am very foolish because oftentimes the way my brain works, my episode doesn't occur to me to write until 10 o'clock at night, usually on a work night. Right, and I usually sit there for about an hour doing my initial script. It's usually me just kind of refreshing myself, doing a little Wikipedia search, because a lot of time has passed between some of these games. Other things have happened. My brain may not remember it all. And usually by the time I've read it, oh my God, yeah, now I remember this. And then I start remembering other bits. And then I begin to putting together what I want to say. So it usually takes me about an hour for the initial script, probably a day or two after I let it marinate. And then I go back and edit it and say, this phrasing was really bad, or I realized I missed something, or no, I want to say something else. So all total, probably between 5 hours, between maybe 2 to 3 days.
How many do you have in the bank at the moment?
At the moment, I am
just curious. We fly by the seat of our pants here. This episode airs Monday.
Gotcha. Let me take a quick look. I don't think I am. Sorry. I have to do a little internet Google foo here, gentlemen. Hang on one second.
No, you're fine. This is where I have the opportunity to apologize to Brian now for interrupting him.
No, this is probably the better place to slot in a little quiz.
Yeah. So. I'm still on season 2. My season 2 is currently the PS1 and PS2 era. Once I'm done with the PS2, I'll be moving on to season 3, which I'll be dealing with the GameCube and a bunch of other eras of gaming from there. Currently, it's going to be episode number 41. Next week's show will be my 41st official episode. Now, technically, of course, the thing will tell you it's 43 because I have two basically intros. An intro and then a season 2 intro. But actual episodes is 41.
Yeah. And how many do you have in advance, like written in advance? You don't write them every week, right?
No, not every week. My plan is I usually write a 4-piece. I usually block out a month.
Okay.
So I have everything in March written. I just need to have time to record it. Usually I have to do it on overnights and weekends, usually by telling my wife, hey, I'm going to go into my recording studio for an hour. I'll be back. And she just says, okay, I'll stay real quiet for that time. Let me know. But yeah, I usually do it in month chunks.
Cool.
Unless something comes up and I really have to talk about, like, I may do a 5 or 6, like go into months. So my current plan with everything I have, if I do not add any other games, which I invariably will, I should be getting close to the end of my prepared material sometime late in 2023.
Wow. Very cool. I'm looking forward to the next year and a half then.
Well, thank you.
And do you have a favorite game you want to shout out real quick? Just something that, like, I know you maybe don't want to say this, let people hear it for themselves, but if you want to just name drop your favorite game real quick
of all the games I've done so far.
Yeah, of every game that you've ever played.
Oh my God.
I know. I would have I wouldn't be able to say this either. So I ask people the impossible question. I don't have to answer it. That's my
if I absolutely had to, if I was being stuck on a desert island and I could only take 5 games with me, that would be a hard list to put together because there's been so many I loved. It'd be a hard competition between Final Fantasy 6 and 7. A couple of Resident Evil. Yeah, 6. Awesome, definitely 6 and 7. And like I said, I'll be talking about both. I've talked about the original. I will be talking about the remake and Intergrade at some point as well. Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 4, that would be a hard fight between those two, which I want to take. The first 2 Dead Space games, absolute classics of all mine.
Yeah, absolutely.
But of all time, if literally I had no other choice and a strange 8-foot-tall grayish monstrosity in a trench coat and fedora was coming my way and I had to choose, it would invariably be Resident Evil 2. And yes, I would cheat and also take the remake with me.
Good job.
I'd sneak that on me out somewhere.
Good man. We did a Resident Evil rankings, and I think we did those as separate games. So I kind of cheated and had both on my list.
It's they're almost two separate games entirely, much like Final Fantasy VII original and the remake. It's almost you can't compare. You can compare the two, but you almost can't because they're essentially two different games. But they are, to me, they represent such joy and such a beloved portion of both of that genre and game. That would be my number one.
Cool. So these are real quick fire questions from here on out. Brian, I don't know if you have a question you want to ask real quick, but I could go ahead and ask.
Mine is always inverted or not inverted for controls. Do you have a preference?
The problem with inverted is that I will get confused and my motion sickness starts up. So I have to do standard, not inverted controls. To be able to play.
Perfect.
Okay.
That is the correct answer. So I have another question. Is Funky Kong a biker or a surfer?
From what I know, he is a surfer.
That's right.
Okay.
With a pilot's license.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Look at this.
Oh, okay. No. Not a third profession.
Yeah, right. We already have a hard enough time deciding who's right. So now I have a surprise question, bonus question for you. Is Super Mario Sunshine a good game? Yes or no?
Oh, man. I'm probably going to disappoint a few people on this one. I played it for a little while. It is cute. It is bright. It is colorful. I want to choke whoever's responsible for the flood mechanics and trying to have you float, because it plays like you have a millstone around your neck and 2 lead bricks to your feet.
Watch it.
Well, I love Super Mario Sunshine, but no, I think this is like the perfectly split Mario game. I think this is the one where, like, regardless of your answer, you're going to upset half the people. Who
and like I said, the problem is it's beautiful. It's put together. It's a great game for what it was. So bright and colorful. And then they just have this thing that I might as well be hitting the enemies with a pack of Twizzlers. It's, you know,
I love it though. So I guess now we can officially get into the mission debrief. Sorry for the aside, Brian, and the interruption.
It's okay.
The worst co-host ever.
So our mission debrief, just something you want to mention that maybe wasn't any of the games that we talked about, maybe something that you watched this week or read, anything like that.
Well, you see, it's hard for me because I also have 2 there that I love. And one of them's a long-standing and one's a recent. My long-standing thing is, like I said, is I've talked about D&D so much in this. I've been a long-time tabletop gamer. I've been a long-time tabletop player. I have actually written semi-professionally for tabletop games.
Nice.
And my system of choice, surprisingly, while it is a very good system and I love playing it, it is not 5e Dungeons & Dragons, which is the most current one, time of recording. It is Savage Worlds. Savage Worlds, the tabletop game. It is one of those tabletop systems where you don't have character classes. You don't have anything. Your entire character build is you get your dice and you build your characters off of your hindrances and your edges, your bad points and your good points. This can mean that you may be the greatest sorcerer ever, but you have crippling diarrhea. You may be this amazing super spy, but you're a paranoid schizophrenic. You have all this different stuff built in, and it is easily customizable to any type of genre you want to play. You want to play fantasy? They got you. You want to play sci-fi? They got you. You want to play Lovecraftian horror? They got you. You want to play superheroes? They super got you. Their flagship series has always been Deadlands: The Weird West, in an alternate version of the United States where during the Battle of Gettysburg, a very, very angry native shaman breaks the forces of hell loose and begins to flood the world with energy from hell or the Nightmare Lands or something like that. So
I hate when that happens, man.
Exactly. The dead begin to rise from the grave, and the forces at Gettysburg stop because now they're having to fight their own recently deceased. And from there on, the world begins to change. Legends come to life. Suddenly, magic comes back, and instead of being sorcerers, they're now called hucksters because they cast based off card hands. Native American shamans suddenly get a really big call. If you're a priest, when you call on God, he answers in a huge way. And martial artists, their chi becomes so powerful, they now can literally shake the mountains. And every gunslinger in the world becomes a card sharp. But you're fighting against vampires, you're fighting against werewolves, you're fighting against the living dead, you are fighting against mechanized beings, because now there is steampunk technology on top of it. So it is basically Briscoe County Jr.
Right.
with Night of the Living Dead attached. It is an amazing game system. I love it. And they built out from there to make it the Savage Worlds system. It is so customizable. It is my game of choice. I always try and hype it up to people because it is a smaller, less published game. It's in the same category of something like a Fate, something like that, where it's very customizable. But it's basically a one-man show with a lot of licensees.
That's cool.
I got to write for them. I feel very proud of that. It's a very cool system, so I always talk about it and always promote it.
Yeah.
My other one, if you will
good Bruce Campbell reference there, though.
Exactly.
Yeah,
thank you. I love that show of his.
Yeah.
My other one, if you will allow me, you can say no.
No, of course. Go for it.
It's actually something I found during the pandemic. When I was my initial job when the pandemic started, it was working at a care site for individuals with severe developmental disabilities. Loved the job. We all fought for it. We taught. We did art. It was great, but the program had to shut down due to COVID restrictions. So we all lost our jobs. And while I was in the process of looking for new work, I spent a lot of time on YouTube in between looking for jobs, being at home, like going, oh man, this is it's so bogus. I found a show called 2 Minutes to Late Night. It's a comedy heavy metal talk show. Cool. It is hosted by a gentleman called Jordan Olds, who plays Arsenio Hall, who wears the full black metal makeup. But he rented out, I think, St. Vitus Bar in New York City for a number of episodes, totally Patreon funded. And they literally had a late night talk show style thing where they talked about the old favorites of heavy metal and stuff like this, like Iron Maiden and all those back in the day. And he's since gone on during the pandemic to hire all these great heavy metal musicians to cover more mainstream songs. So literally like a Dire Straits or Faith No More or a, Jefferson Airplane or something like that in a heavy metal vein. So I always recommend, if you want a good laugh, video, heavy metal versions of, top 40 pop hits, go look up on YouTube 2 Minutes to Late Night.
I will, for sure.
I've heard of that one before, actually.
Really? That's cool, man. Yeah. I'm out of the loop. Nice. Very good. Both very good. Man, you should be very proud of that. It doesn't surprise me with your writing skills that you were able to get something published, though, on that level.
I hope one day to get more. It's like anything. It's a tough field.
Well, someone's attention. You're very good at writing, so stick with it, man.
Thank you.
You will do it. I used to play Rift back in the day, which a lot of people don't enjoy, but I did.
Actually, Savage Worlds now did an adaptation of Rifts.
Oh, very cool.
So you can find it and play Rifts in Savage Worlds now.
I do play a lot of tabletop games as well. But I lost my gaming group, so moving to a new place will do that to you. Mm-hmm. But that's not my mission debrief. My me brief. Mine is actually I posted on Instagram that we talked about Demon Souls early in this episode, and I talked about Demon Souls a few weeks ago as well for my mission debrief with the No Clip documentary. However, I'm talking about Brian lost a bet. He has to play Demon Souls because he got fewer predictions correct than I did. I'm going to say this every opportunity I have. Brian lost. Okay. But I found some really, really cool Demon Souls shirts for us. So I got us matching t-shirts. So when we do the episode on the game, we could wear them together. And I found them from this website that I did not know existed. And I just want to let everybody out there know that this is a thing. It's called fangamer.com.
Oh, yeah.
Do you guys know about this?
I think I've heard of it. Yeah.
It has.
I think I've seen a few things.
It's very cool. All officially licensed stuff for everything from a short hike to Bloodborne and everything in between. It has Overcooked merch, and it's freaking cooking aprons and pan holders and stuff, pot holders.
Nice.
It is so cool. Like the personalized merch they have there. Not to mention they have vinyl. They have like Banjo Kazooie on vinyl. The soundtrack. They
All
have
right, I gotta
Okay.
show this. Here we go.
Do you have it? Do you have the vinyl?
I've
Did you-
got this little piece from them.
The airship.
Yeah, this is
Oh, that is neat.
yeah, it's
That
real
is
cool.
And you got that from
that's-
Fangamer?
Yep.
Yeah, they have a ton. So my question is, they have a lot of posters, and I was considering getting a few. Do they come framed? You have to buy the frame. for them, I'm
No, you have
assuming,
to
right?
frame them
They
yourself.
come in
yeah.
like a tube, like
correct.
a poster tube. Okay, man. But this is just. I was so happy to have stumbled across this that I think I have my Brian gifts lined up for the next like 20 years, dude.
Dude,
Like, I
there's
am
so
good.
much good stuff on there.
Yeah.
I got
and,
the Stardew Valley guidebook for my wife, and it's this hardbound book. It is so beautiful. Like the art in it's equal to the game, but it's got all the characters and their backstories and who likes what, and it's the whole guide to the entire
That's
game.
what I mean. With the vinyls too, like just the cover art on those it's incredible. And then like some of the vinyl the albums themselves are like customized, so they're like different colors. It is just everything on there looks like it's all officially licensed stuff, like I said.
Mhm.
And it's just like this attention to detail that like I love gaming merch. Like it's a huge I love video games, man. I've been playing them forever. It's a part of who I am. And like to have this, you're going to pay a premium because it is officially licensed, but it's finally a place where it seems like that premium is worth it for what you get.
Yeah.
And I think everybody should check them out because they might have the game you can't find anywhere else. They might have
some
merch
deep
for
cuts.
it. Yeah. And
They have some Diddy Kong Racing pins that I saw on there.
they have a lot of cool pins. They have the Last of Us 2 pins and stuff. It's
Mhm.
really cool stuff, man. Yeah. Anyway,
Sweet.
fangamer.com.
Yes,
Yeah,
that is a great one.
thanks.
All right, so my mission debrief or mission or deep. What did you call it? Edition.
I call it Edition Me Brief.
Edition me brief.
Yes.
So we've all heard, maybe we've seen shows like The Bachelor. Netflix has a show called Love is Blind. It's complete trash.
Oh,
and we love the trash. That is not my mission debrief. My mission debrief is a show called Burning Love. And this is a parody of those shows.
Okay.
And it is absolutely hilarious. It has a lot of celebrity actors that they didn't really have their start at the time that this came out, because this was like 2008 or so. But now they're huge. So it's got people like who's Ben Wyatt from Parks and Rec? Adam.
Yeah. What's his name?
Adam something, I think.
It's the guy who plays Sonic, right? No.
that's Ben
I'm
Schwartz.
sorry. Yeah, not Ben Schwartz. I know who you're the guy who was like the love interest, right?
Exactly. Yeah. He's in there.
Okay.
We've got Ken Jeong.
Okay.
There's
Nice.
there's a bunch of people from
The guy who was the youngest mayor, right? Or whatever, right?
Yes, that's him.
That's right.
There's a bunch of people. It's just so many people that you'll be like, oh my god, like it's that guy. But it's a parody of The Bachelor. There are 3 seasons of it. The first one's The Bachelor, the second one's The Bachelorette, so it's a woman who just sees all these guys, and then the third season is a combination of everyone. It's like some competition, and it is so funny. It's very deadpan, dry humor. And you don't really know that it's funny until like you're well into it. But meeting all these characters, seeing the parody that is a Bachelor show, I cannot recommend the show enough. I watched it when it was premiering. It was like Yahoo TV or something like that. It's going to be really hard to find. I will say that. I think it is somewhere you probably have to pay for it at this point. But I guarantee if you like deadpan humor, you're going to love Burning Love. And I'm very interested to hear if anyone else has ever even heard of the show or would be interested in it.
What did you say it was on?
So let me find out what it's on now. It was on like
Yahoo. Adam Scott, by the way.
Adam Scott.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
His name. Yeah.
Oh man, Elvis is the only thing that.
Well, I
comes
mean,
up
I'm
when
sure
you search
I could
Burning
just,
Love.
I could probably just look it up. Have you ever seen the other one that guy was in though, called Party Down? If you like
Yes.
deadpan
So
humor,
it's all those actors too.
Oh, cool.
It's all of them.
Yeah, Party Down was great.
So Ken Marino's the main guy. He's
Right,
Mark Orlando.
Okay. Perfect.
But yeah, man, Michael Ian Black. I'm just looking at the people on here.
So what's this? Kids in the Hall, right? That's what a lot of those guys were. No, they were The State. Sorry, The State was like Michael Ian Black. And remember the sketch comedy show on MTV called The State?
Yes. I do actually remember that one.
Remember.
Yeah.
Colin Hanks is in it. Adam Brody. There's a lot of good people. And yeah, Ben Stiller, Michael Cera. Everyone's in it.
Oh,
so
cool.
yeah, really take a look at it. Burning Love, and
Cool.
I have no idea where you can get it now.
We'll find it. It's out there somewhere.
Yeah, it's
on at the very least. It's on Amazon. You could pay for it, right?
I'm sure it is.
Yeah. Very good. Very good.
Yeah. So next week we are going to put the screws to Nintendo because
is that next week already?
Yeah. It's our mission report for the month.
I can't believe the month's almost over. That's all. Yeah. Well, it's February, so
Now you've got me worried. Let me look at our calendar here.
I'm pulling it up right now, and I think I think you're right. Actually,
that's it. Mission report. We got Nintendo. We have a lot to talk about, especially with recent news that Nintendo's pulling on us.
Yeah. So basically, we're going to be doing why does Nintendo always get a pass from a lot of people? I have just as much nostalgia and love for Nintendo as anybody else. As I mentioned,
we all do.
Playing video games for 35 years, and you could be sure that Nintendo was the largest part of those 35 years. But man, they get away with a lot, and people just let them slide. People are ready to rake so many other gaming companies across the coals. But when it comes to Nintendo, it's like, oh well, it's just Nintendo being Nintendo, and we're going to bring all that up next week.
Oh, those wacky Japanese characters always pulling shenanigans. Right. You realize that they're taking away our history, right? Oh, but it's fine.
I know. Yeah. We have a lot to talk about there.
We do. Before we go though, Phil, do you want to shout out all your podcasts and socials and everything one last time?
Sure, I'd be more than happy to. Okay, yes, I am on Twitter at Deleted Saves. I'm also on Instagram at deleted_saves_podcast. I'm not a huge social media presence because I try to do my own social mediaing, and I am the world's worst promoter. But I try very, very hard. But yes, my show is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor's main page, and pretty much everywhere else you can get your podcasts from. More than happy to let it be out there. And that is pretty much me. And that's where I can be found.
Cool. We'll put links to everything down in the show notes. And once again, thank you so much for joining us. We are both honored to be your first guest appearance.
Yes,
we love what you do, man, and can't wait to hear what you come up with till the end of 2023 and maybe beyond.
Hopefully beyond. Like I said, thank you, gentlemen. I really appreciate the opportunity. I'm glad to get to meet you guys finally,
same,
and be on the show with you guys, talk about a genre I very much love, and you will be hearing from more as time goes on.
Yeah.
And hopefully more people like what I do, and we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, by the way, this was your idea. The beat 'em up list was Phil's idea. So we had to roll with it. I love me some beat 'em ups. And thank you, Brian, for giving it your old college try. No, I'm kidding.
You did the Metroidvanias.
I know.
So that was my genre for sure. So thank you.
We make concessions. That's what friends do, right?
Cool. Well, tune in next week for some heavy duty Nintendo talk. But as always, guys, thank you so much for listening and watching, and we hope you have a great night. See you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.